Harriet the spy. Herbert was breathing heavily into his mic again, which tells her that he's thinking about the army of children he's having. She rolls her eyes. She can get being worried about having that many kids. She has a hard time figuring she would have that many ever, but parenthood is a daunting prospect. Still, he was still focused enough for him to quiet down as she taps the mic and continues on her way. This is one of the more concerning groups on Centris. They refer to themselves as the Society, which places them in the wonderful company of several 100,000 such groups with the same name. Their classification in the intelligence division was the Society A21. The A is for alarming and 21 in that there are just so freaking many, even after you pare down the ones that were jumped up country clubs or civilian interest groups with odd uniforms. Alarming designations are those that have the power or apparent will to do something. It meant it required attention. However, if it was a real problem, then it would be moved to I or immediate. There were a total of 3 the societies in I category. However, this one was a maybe. It had been investigating into undaunted affairs and pushing into areas that it shouldn't. Curiosity was to be expected. Over-eagerness was also to be expected. But these people had been digging into individual soldiers and not in the almost cute looking for a boyfriend kind. So here she was, wearing the face of a middle-tier member of the Society A21 that she had drugged and left on her bed back home. Not that the face was needed, but if anyone looked too closely at the mask, they'd see that the face behind it was matching up regardless. It was just good sense to be thorough when it came to things like this. Her Axiom profile not only matching her covers, but also a semi-hungover state made it so that many of the cultists wandered away from her. Which made sense. Loretta Weather was a grouchy sort at the best of times. When hungover, she was outright mean. She was just getting in, dropping an entire infestation worth of bugs, and then getting out while paying her dues to the society as Loretta would on her off days. Someone's showing up at 6:30. Herbert whispers into his mic, and Harriet deliberately stops as if she has a headache and growls a little. Loretta's known to do it when her hangovers spike. Whoever's been coming up behind her stops abruptly and goes the other way. Why did this group of idiots trust this girl? She wasn't a guard or a knee breaker. She was a low-level clerk that drank like a fish and routinely got in trouble. She was a thug that wasn't in the job of a proper thug. She was acting as eyes and ears, and Harriet already had the girl's report, a report that had Herbert on edge and pissed off. It was a count of his children, who the mothers were and who each of the mothers were attached to. The only reason it was being brought in was that this was all technically publicly available information being added to the census, and they needed to see where it was going and why. Sir Philip was also very interested in this state of affairs and was paying close attention as well. Hopefully, Harriet would be able to stay out of this madness. But with how obsessed the local girls were with finding a man and getting pregnant, she was likely to either be dragged into this by proxy or have to have a child or borrow someone's to keep her cover. Maybe adoption was possible. Only the youngest women weren't mothers, and it had a physical effect in this loony galaxy. Something to look into later. Right now, her main concern is stomping, then forcibly stopping her stomps as she walks up to the leader of the Society A21. She moves quickly before moving into a more deferential pose, miming out all the movements of someone miserable to be there as her presence lets it out. "Too many cresters again?" the leader asks, and Harriet affects a groan of both anger and assent. "Just hurry through your tasks and head home. No one wants your attitude." "Yes, illustrious leader." Harriet grunts out before turning around. "Do not slam that door." The leader hisses, and Harriet stops it mid-swing and then lets it gently close behind her. "I'm in." Herbert whispers to her over the connection. She scratches at the mic to send that she understands and things progress as normal for an infiltration. She goes through the routine of her mimic target and strategically places bugs wherever they won't be stumbled on when she gets the chance. The best places are on the undersides of chairs, desks, and trash cans. People off those places know attention and they're right up close to people. The back of a toilet setup gets some, as does behind a mirror and a few door frames. The trick is to be thorough but not over the top so that they don't get noticed due to sheer mass. They're disguised to look like little bits of debris left behind after a typical building repair and maintenance. The sort of things you brush to the side and forget about. All followers of the society, please report to the Chamber of Knowledge. There is much to discuss. The leader's voice rings out through the building and Harriet frowns. She considers just leaving. Loretta's certainly prickly enough to do so, but she's here for information. So in spite of the increased danger, she goes for the auditorium, also known as the Chamber of Knowledge in the Society, A21. So with her in her stupid-as-hell red robes and black mask, she wanders into an entire swarm of girls like her. Her axiom presence and body language gives her a decent berth around her, as no one wants to be in swinging range of a hungover Loretta. She has a reputation for that kind of thing. My dear members, my glorious followers, we have our opportunity. The Undaunted are a strange and aggressive people, but we have an in. One of their members, right here on Centris, has had himself an entire brood of children. No doubt with just a few of these eggs we would gain great advantage over this short-sighted fool among their number. Make yourself scarce, I'm going to kill her, Herbert states coldly, and Harriet can hear him assembling a rifle through the communication. The leader's speech is going on to using one compromised soldier to compromise another in a daisy chain going up, and how they just need the leverage to make it happen. Hold, soldier. A captive to interrogate is far more useful than a corpse. Sir Philip interjects and there's a pause. Very well, but she's being taken out of power sooner rather than later, and definitely before she can make any kind of move against one of my kids. Hebert growls into the mic. Unclenched, soldier, your agitation will make you imprecise. You need to be able to perform flawlessly, Sir Philip says, and there's a deep breath from Herbert. Harriet, we need you to get a tracer onto the illustrious leader. Then you need to get yourself ready for an entirely new performance. She's going to be your new face. Understood? Harriet whispers too lowly for anyone to catch over the leader's speech. She's turned it to speculation of forcing the soldiers into relationships with the society. It's a boyfriend hunting cult. An entire organization that's going to use kidnapping to force people to date them. How fucking unpleasant and ugly must these girls be to need a fucking cult to back them in order to get laid? As the noise builds up, she fakes a few winces, then starts skulking away, dropping a bug that she kicks into a corner to keep listening for her as she makes her way out of the cult headquarters. She's got more work to do. Redressed in civilian clothing with her normal face out, Harriet pulls out her communicator and begins to talk openly. Hey there, little buddy. How's my little baby brother doing? Translation. Herbert, report. Up and up, sis. The latest girl's really clingy. I'm not sure it's going to work out all that well. Translation. Mission successful. I have the target. Requesting aid to transport. Oh boy, I'll come pick you up. Need anything? Translation. Confirmed. On approach. Further details? No, I'm all right. Herbert replies and the call goes dead. There's a text just moments later giving her an address. She quickly gets the air car that was bought for her and drives over to the address, 3 spires over. There's a private garage that she pulls into, and as she turns off the engine, there's something that blurs from the shadow. A sudden registry of weight in the storage compartment in the back, and the shadow continues, unimpeded by physical objects, to coalesce into the seat beside her, and a case is set down. Mission complete. I got a lot out of her, Herbert says in the back seat, and she nods. He then lies down in the back and fades out of sight completely, but the car still registers his weight. She pulls out of the parking spot and, like nothing happened, drives away. It takes 4 hours to reach the Dauntless on the scenic route. She also flips the registration of the car a few times, shifts around who owns it until it lands on her normal human identity. So it makes complete sense for this completely normal mass-produced vehicle to fly right up to and into the holding bay of the Dauntless. Herbert reappears in his full mission outfit. Dark gray visor over midnight blue and black bodysuit with numerous tools and weapons strapped to it. Even without using Axiom or trying to be sneaky, he looks more like a shadow peeled itself off the ground and started to walk around than an actual person. He exits the vehicle normally as several guards arrive and grab the still unconscious leader of the society. Somehow Herbert had gotten her in her specially trimmed robes and mask. They pick her up and quickly drag her to a cell where her possessions are gone over: identification, communicator, personal keys, and effects. "Mr. Jameson, it's time." Sir Philip says some time later, "Sir? You have to learn how to do proper intimidation eventually. While conspiracy to kidnap and conspiracy to extort are both crimes, they are not crime enough to justify death. Therefore, she must live. As such, she needs to understand fully that attempting to resume such actions is a very, very poor idea. I've taught you much and your studies have covered this topic as well. Do me proud," he says, patting the infiltrator on the shoulder with a smile. The leader is Velocity Moore, a Lyrak woman whose unusual name is due to her mother being a full conversion cyborg that could also transform into a racing zoomer. She was born from an artificial womb to a chrome mother. Whether that was the cause of her leaning into kidnapping for her mating process, however, was neither here nor there. She was conspiring to attack the Undaunted. That was not about to let go of so easily. From a side room with a one-way window, Sir Philip and Harriet, along with several agents from the Intelligence Division, watch as Velocity outright flinches as Herbert marches into the room. Her jaw drops as he steps up to the opposite side of the table and sits down. He says nothing to her as his eyes bore into hers with enough intensity that he need merely draw in the Axiom to set her on fire. Harriet is staring as well. She's more in tune to Axiom emotions. It's still a skill she's mastering, but there is no mistaking the sheer boiling hatred and a rage so black it seems to be eating the light around him. He's only glaring at her, but there's no mistaking the fact that at least part of him is going over all the steps required to skin her alive. Velocity grows more and more agitated and trying to back away despite being cuffed to the chair. She hits the back wall and tries pushing up against it as Herbert seems to be foregoing blinking as he glares. "Miss Dubois, if you could be so kind as to go in there and rescue the poor girl," Sir Philip asks with a slight grin. "Are you certain, sir? I think she could use a little more intimidation." "Yes, however, I think her heart might stop at this rate. Hopefully Mr. Jameson will be able to bring this level of intimidation when not personally involved in the situation later," Sir Philip says, and Harriet salutes the man before walking out of the observation room and then into the hallway before entering the interrogation room. Herbert does not turn and she puts a hand on his shoulder. "Take a break, soldier. I think she understands your displeasure now." "Yes, ma'am," Herbert says, rising up while still glaring at Velocity, and then turning all at once and marching out. 3 stomping steps and he's out of the room and gone. The squirrel woman lets out a big breath and just pants in her chair with slight sobs to punctuate. "I'm sorry about that. Humans get really touchy when their children are involved. He was trying to kill me." "If he was going to kill you, then you would already be dead. He was the one that got into your home and brought you here. Why are you doing this?" Velocity sobs into her hands as the reduction in stress breaks her down a little more. "Oh well, that's easily explained, I'm afraid." Harriet answers while reaching into her pocket and pulling out her communicator. A few taps later and Velocity's speech as the leader of the society. A21 now, I4 sounds out. Fortunately for you, we caught you early. You've only conspired to kidnap and extort a member of the Undaunted in good standing. If you had actually done it, then he wouldn't have knocked you out to take you prisoner. He would have... Actually, I'd rather not say, but needless to say, things would have been much, much more unpleasant. What do you want? The squirrel squeaks. Harriet pushes aside how appropriate such a thing is. Right now, I just want you to talk. Tell me about the society and what you plan to do with it.